There's a certain type of person who moves through life feeling slightly disconnected from the psychological rhythm of the world. This chosen one in question will often feel mentally older than the environments they're in. Not because they know everything, but because their minds are simply wired differently. See, most people are conditioned to move with society automatically. They wake up, follow structure, seek approval, and repeat learned behaviors. But chosen ones have a mind that naturally resists unconscious living. As children, they may ask questions even adults do not like brought up. Questions like, why do people fake their emotions? Why do humans fear raw honesty? Why do crowds change individual behavior? Or, why does society reward performance more than authenticity? And while most people suppress these thoughts, the chosen one keeps thinking, processing, analyzing. And even though they may come off as quiet, their minds are forever loud. Psychologically, chosen ones are usually highly introspective individuals living in an extroverted social system. And that combination alone changes everything. So tonight, we're diving deep into the psychological traits of a chosen one. One of the first psychological traits of a chosen one is observation before reaction. Most people experience reality emotionally first. Chosen ones often experience it analytically first. They walk into environments and immediately begin reading the atmosphere unconsciously. Behavioral patterns, tone shifts, social dynamics, emotional energy, power structures within conversations. And the strange thing is, many chosen ones don't even realize they're doing this. It became automatic. Because psychologically, highly aware individuals tend to develop deep observational habits early in life, especially if they grew up in emotionally unpredictable environments. Observation became survival. They learned to read the room before speaking, learn people before trusting, analyze behavior before relaxing. But over time, this survival mechanism evolved into heightened social awareness. That's why chosen ones often notice things other people overlook completely: contradictions, emotional inconsistency, subtle dishonesty, hidden tension, unspoken emotion. Not because they're paranoid, but because their brain processes social information deeply. And while society rewards speed, chosen ones naturally move toward depth. They don't just ask, what happened? They ask, why did it happen? What caused that reaction? What insecurity created that behavior? What emotion is hiding underneath those words? That's why chosen ones often become psychologically exhausted around surface-level environments. Their mind naturally seeks substance. And in a world built on distraction, depth can become very isolating. However, while most people experience life externally, chosen ones experience life internally first. This is one of the biggest psychosocial differences. For example, an ordinary person may go through an event and immediately move on. But the chosen one? They revisit it mentally, analyze it emotionally, extract meaning from it psychologically. They replay conversations, study emotional patterns, reflect on why certain moments affected them deeply. And because of this, chosen ones often develop profound self-awareness earlier than others. But there's a cost to this level of introspection, like overthinking, like mental fatigue, or emotional intensity, or difficulty disconnecting from the current of thought. Because the chosen one's mind rarely experiences reality at surface level, everything is symbolic, everything carries meaning. and everything connects to a larger internal framework. That's why chosen ones are often drawn toward philosophy, psychology, spirituality, symbolism, human behavior, and existential thinking. Not because they're trying to appear deep, but because their brain naturally searches for meaning beneath appearance. Psychologically, this creates a feeling many chosen ones struggle to explain. Feeling physically present in the world, but mentally distant from it. Like they're simultaneously participating in reality while observing it from a bird's eye view, so to speak. And that's part of the main reason why many chosen ones need solitude. Not because they view themselves as elite, but because solitude quiets external stimulation long enough for their inner world to breathe and center itself again. Moreover, one of the most misunderstood things about chosen ones is their relationship with conformity. Most people adapt psychologically to social systems in order to feel accepted. Chosen ones struggle to do this naturally, even when they try. Because internally, they question everything: social trends, cultural norms, group behavior, emotional performances, status obsession, validation seeking, and psychologically, this creates tension. Because human society is heavily built around imitation. People copy speech patterns, beliefs, lifestyles, opinions, desires. But chosen ones often feel uncomfortable, blindly following collective behavior. Their mind constantly asks questions, and this skepticism alone separates them psychologically from the majority. Most people inherit identities unconsciously, but chosen ones analyze identity consciously. That's why many of them are able to reinvent themselves repeatedly throughout life. They're constantly growing spiritually, constantly removing false versions of themselves, constantly searching for authenticity between societal influences. And this is why they often feel disconnected from shallow social rituals. To put it straight, they crave what's real, not what's popular. You see, chosen ones are often emotionally deep people, living in more likely than not emotionally avoidant societies. And that creates internal conflict. They feel things intensely, but they don't always express those feelings outwardly. In fact, many chosen ones appear emotionally calm externally, while experiencing entire psychological storms internally. And this happens because they tend to process emotions intellectually as well as emotionally. They don't just feel sadness. They analyze the source of it. They don't just feel anxiety. They examine the pattern behind it. They don't just experience heartbreak. They search for the lesson inside it. And while this creates emotional intelligence over time, it can also create emotional exhaustion, because chosen ones often carry emotional depth silently. So they look to a higher source instead. And that's why many of them struggle to feel fully understood too. Not because people don't care, but because their inner world is difficult to explain verbally. Some emotions they experience are too layered for ordinary conversation. Psychological, existential, and too introspective. That's why many chosen ones express themselves better through art, music, writing, deep conversation, creativity, or solitude. However, one major psychosocial difference between chosen ones and most people is motivation. Most humans are motivated primarily by survival and social validation, status, money, attention, and recognition. But don't get me wrong, chosen ones may desire those things too, but that excitement never lasts long. Deep down, they're driven by meaning and deep fulfillment. And this is why many of them struggle in environments that reward empty achievement. Because psychologically, their soul needs emotional connection to what they're doing. They need meaning behind effort, purpose, behind movement, and ethics behind success. That's why many chosen ones would rather walk the long walk authentically, God consciously, than succeed while betraying their souls. And while society may temporarily reward performance, chosen ones are psychologically wired for alignment, even if that alignment may cost acceptance. But the most challenging part in the psychology of a chosen one is self-acceptance. Because early in life, many chosen ones secretly try to become more normal, more socially acceptable. However, their awareness is something they can never fully run from, no matter how hard they tried. And once they stop resisting themselves, everything changes psychologically. They stop forcing shallow connections. They stop neglecting their intuition. They stop apologizing for needing solitude, stop shrinking their thoughts to make others comfortable, and slowly, peace replaces confusion. Because the chosen one finally understands something profound. Their difference was never a flaw in their psychology. It was the entire design. And maybe that's the real psychology of a chosen one. Not someone chosen to be above others, but someone psychologically wired to experience life consciously, to think deeply in a distracted world, to seek truth in a performative world, to search for meaning in a world obsessed with appearance. And while that path can feel isolating at times, it also creates rare individuals capable of profound awareness, of making a big difference in the world. Chosen ones don't just live life, they study it. And eventually, they understand themselves deeply enough to stop fearing their own mind. Thanks for watching, but if you want to watch more of these types of videos, subscribe and join the family. See you in the next one.